Welcome back to Trino Community Broadcast episode 53. Cole is joining us since he's back from his trip to, where did you just go, Cole?
I was in the Bay Area for the first time in a little while in Redwood City, giving a talk about Trino on ice in partnership with Slalom. So that was a fun talk.
Awesome, cool. And here you also met some other people from the community.
Yeah, we met a couple people who are going to be giving talks at Trino Summit in just a couple months, as well as former speakers from Trino Summit. So it was a good opportunity to catch up in person. Trino Meetups are a pretty fun time, and I'm looking forward to potentially doing more of those down the line.
Yeah, I hear you're going to go at the end of November somewhere big.
Oh, yeah. So that's reInvent.
Yeah, so there'll be people in our audience going to be there. So if you have a chance to go to reInvent, try to hunt Cole down in the audience, I guess. He's going to be there with Starburst. And what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm going to be running around with a camera, asking people questions, trying to generate some Trino content. So if you want to be featured on the Trino YouTube channel, find me at reInvent walking around with the camera stabilizer and say hi, and we'll see if we can get you involved in that, because we want to spread the word about Trino, and we think that content's a great way to do it. So that's going to be my goal while there, and I'm really looking forward to doing that because it sounds like fun.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about Coginiti and Trino, another great tool that discovered the advantages of Trino and joined our community. So we're going to be joined by Matthew Mullins and Roman Nestertsov. I hope I said that right now. Sorry for butchering your name in case. But before we do that, we have releases to talk about again. Cole, what happened in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so the Trino release train continues rolling. Support for SQL routines is the first bullet point we have on the screen right now, and that's a huge deal, Manfred. I think you're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a bit, but
yes,
this is kind of our answer to UDFs. In the ANSI SQL spec, SQL routines are a kind of easier, better way to go about implementing what UDFs are trying to achieve, and we're really excited about that feature. Some smaller things that have been going on that aren't quite as groundbreaking as SQL routines. We added support for replace in create table, improve latency for prepared statements on JDBC connectors. In 432, faster filtering on columns that contain long strings, predicate pushdown for some numerical columns in MongoDB, support for the Iceberg REST catalog in the register and unregistered table procedures, support for bearer authentication for the Nessie catalog. So using Nessie is now easier, and you can authenticate in certain different ways. And then in 433, we improve support for Hive schema evolution. So there's more types that you can change columns to and from without breaking things. And support for altering table comments in the Glue catalog. Table comment and column comment support is pretty much 100% rolled out at this point, or like 99% rolled out. So comments should just be functional no matter what connector you're using. You should be able to create them, drop them, edit them without any problems whatsoever, which is nice for maintaining good, clean tables that everyone understands.
Yeah, it's sort of like a built-in documentation, right? Like you can go describe the table and you see the comments and you're like, oh, that's what that random table name is actually for. Like,
yeah,
not everyone has the luxury of giving tables good names.
yeah, when you have the same table and there's like an _2, _3, and _4 version of it, we can tell you why those exist with comments. And then 433 also included documentation for the create and drop catalogs. So is that dynamic catalogs, Manfred? When's that happening?
That is dynamic catalogs, and it is working. And I actually demoed it with David yesterday, and it's so cool. Of course, it also has a lot of wrinkles around it, like, you know, like some memory issues. Potentially, if you add and drop thousands of catalogs, whoever would do that is a different question. But specifically also in terms of like making it happen, it needs access to the file system if you write them as files, and that's not necessarily the case, right? So depending on how you play with this, we'll have more work to do to lift it out of being a, what we call at this stage, an experimental feature, but it is really, really awesome and works really nicely to play around with at least. So when you get started and need to figure out your catalogs, that's a way to go. And I'm going to get a blog post ready about that demo later today, so you can see the video. It's already on YouTube as well, by the way.
Yeah, and I'd say the caveat, right, is that it's this is one of the big things that is causing us to need, or causing users to need to restart Trino, is that if you want to create or drop catalogs at any point, Trino has to go down for maintenance. But right now, you're still going to need to restart it every once in a while, just not for like a slow maintenance. It'll just need to be reset so that this, if you're running it for weeks at a time, then it may cause problems if you continue to add and drop catalogs. So
yeah,
which hopefully is just good business in general. So
exactly. Yeah, no, it was a good demo. And yesterday with David, of course, we had too much material again, so we didn't end up talking about Hive views and Trino views and materialized views and all that stuff. So we'll have to do that another day. Let's go back to Trino, the SQL routine competition. I wanted to just share for those of you that are like to code and like hack around and come up with cool ideas. We have an awesome competition going at the moment. You can share your best SQL routine with the new feature. You can fire up Trino 433 at this stage and write your routines. The documentation is included, and we'll show some of the best routines, hopefully get them into the documentation. And Starburst is sponsoring a little cool reward for the best entries. So that should be really cool. And we'll announce them at Trino Summit, which, by the way, can you believe it, Cole? It's only a month away.
Yeah, it's soon. It's less than a month away at this point. I think we're looking at like 29 days or something like that. So
yeah. And you're working on announcing the lineup, I heard.
Yeah, I think that's going to be going live today or tomorrow. Is we're sending out an email and broadcasting most of the talks that have been accepted for Trino Summit. So look forward to that. We've got what has been described by some as the best Trino Summit lineup in over 5 years. So it should be really, really awesome. And I'd encourage everyone to tune in. We'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of this episode.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. And of course, as you all know, it's a free virtual event, so you should all register if you haven't already. What you also should be doing is you should test Java 21, because Trino is moving to Java 21. We are up to date with the latest LTS. It just came out in September. And the latest Docker containers are actually using Java 21 internally. So if you had no issues with them, guess what? We want to know about that, because it tells us that we can probably soon make it a requirement for the tarball and the RPM and all the other important deployments. And that in turn would allow us to implement a whole lot of cleanup in the code base with new libraries, new language features, and just generally improving Trino even more again, which would be great. One thing is also, like, I heard that one of our users are already testing with some of the new garbage collectors from Java 21, and that's always an interesting testing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're a little hesitant, right? Because it's such a big deal, but it's ultimately, we've found every time we upgrade Java versions in Trino, it tends to come with a lot of basically free performance improvements, whether things run faster or garbage is collected sooner or things get patched up that just make it run with fewer snags. It's super nice. And then on the engineering side of things, the new language development and features mean that the engineers working on Trino get to go faster and implement things in better ways, which leads to more improvements down the line. So it's always a big deal and an exciting time when we get to upgrade from one Java version to another. And it should make Trino better than ever before. Part of being in the Java ecosystem means when Java updates, so do you.
If you can. My son is at university and he's like still on some older Java version. I'm like, you got to tell your professor to upgrade.
Yeah, it's Java 8 is still kicking it in a lot of places. So
yeah, no, let's kick that off the curve. All right, and with that, we're switching gears to so it involves the JDBC driver, and I think Matthew and Roman are joining us to talk about. Oops, the wrong screen. To talk about the JDBC driver, because they're using it, and then most importantly about their cool tool Coginiti. But before we go there, Matthew and Roman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Matthew Mullins. I'm the CTO for Coginiti.
Hello, my name is Roman Nestertsov, and I'm principal engineer at Coginiti.
Awesome. And Coginiti is
we're a enterprise-grade data workspace. So we are a last-mile solution, and we're focused on being able to connect to your data anywhere and be able to build reusable analytic components is a big part of what we do.
Okay, so let me guess. We talked about this before, you and me. Coginiti uses the JDBC driver, which means in order to connect to Trino, it uses the JDBC driver, and then Trino, it in turn runs the queries, gets the results from the data sources, and sends the results back via the JDBC driver to your application.
That's correct.
So the question is, what language does your application use?
What language does our application use?
Yeah, what's Coginiti written in?
Oh, Java.
All right, that's cool. Good to know.
Yeah, we're one of those. We're not a Python shop, so we like type safety, and we've been Java for a long time.
Awesome, that's cool. Well, what do you want to tell us about Coginiti? I mean, I definitely want to get a demo from Roman later, but tell us a bit more about how Coginiti found its way into the Trino ecosystem, what Coginiti does, and stuff like that.
So we have we're a 3-year-old startup, and we started off to solve a problem around as we look at the way analysts work in a lot of organizations, especially large organizations, they do a lot of work. They start over from scratch every time. SQL famously doesn't have any kind of package manager. There's no libraries for SQL. And so it's kind of a very inefficient way to work. And so we started off thinking about, how is it that we can make SQL reusable, right? How can we componentize SQL so that we can bring, more software engineering best practices into that world? Along with that comes this element of being able to collaborate, right? Once I build a library, I want to be able to share it with others. I want other people to be able to take advantage of that. And so we spent a lot of time doing discovery work. We would go into organizations and say, how do you share, when you talk to analysts, how do you share SQL code today? Crazy answers, right? we share it in Excel files, right? We have an Excel file that has a row for every SQL query that we want to share. Or
crazy.
They post it to Slack. At the very advanced organizations, they maybe had like a shared drive where they were sharing. And so we built an analytics catalog into our platform that allows users to share code with each other. All of that's versioned. You get the metadata around who created it, when was it last updated. We can see when it was last run. If you're a software developer, you're very familiar with these concepts. But for people that are analysts, a lot of times these concepts are very new. So we built that directly into the platform. And when we started out, we had this thesis that we didn't want to own any compute, right? So we actually, our first product principle, we have 6 product principles. Our first product principle is leverage the client's compute. So we want to be able to use that existing compute wherever we go. And this is because we'd had a previous experience where we built a product that required Spark. So we could write all of our code once for Spark, and we ran into this problem of customers are paying for duplicate compute and things like that. So we said from the outset we weren't going to have any compute in our platform, and we deal a lot with large enterprise customers, and especially large enterprise customers in like regulated industries. So we do, because we will deploy anywhere. So we do a lot of banks and insurance and healthcare and things like that. And contrary to like every pristine deployment model that you've seen on the web, you've seen all these like these modern data stack architectures, and there's always this data warehouse right in the middle. We've never seen a customer that has just a data warehouse, right? They always have, between 3 and 32 data warehouses.
So you're saying the world is messy?
Yeah, the real world of data is super messy. And so, we want to be able to connect to data anywhere. So we can connect to both the data warehouse or database. We can connect to data on object store. But when you get into these big messy places, one of the questions that comes up a lot is, can you blend data? Can you federate queries between my Teradata platform and my new Databricks platform? And we don't have an execution engine as part of our product principles. I think I have think Apple put
Was that a gesture? What happened there?
I thought these were turned off. I think they're the Apple reactions. We'll celebrate that we don't have compute in our own platform. So
yeah, that's all good.
those fireworks are for Trino. So we needed a solution that we could recommend to customers. So when they have this problem of needing to be able to federate, we can say, look, we can connect to Trino. We're not going to provide that. But if that is a need that you have, this is our recommended solution for you. And when we do the implementation for Trino, then we also get things like Starburst comes along with that. So if they want enterprise support for that, they can get that. From Starburst. We thought also that we might get Athena for free, but that's not the case. So I don't know. Roman may want to talk about that a little bit, but that JDBC driver is completely different for obvious reasons to deal with their authentication and things like that. So that's kind of our story about like how we came into Trino. And so we see this in a lot of large enterprise organizations where they need to be able to either span clouds or a recent one that we saw was they're 2 years into a migration and half the data is now in the cloud. 34 petabytes of it is still on-prem, and they can't get it to the cloud fast enough, but they've already moved loading the new data to the cloud, right? So now I need to be able to cross-join my on-prem database with my cloud database. And so, Trino is an obvious solution for that. So that's why we ended up doing the Trino integration.
That's awesome. So there were actual users and customers that were already using Trino that approached you as well, or was it more like you driving, or kind of both?
So we have a generic JDBC driver support within our platform. So we did see some users that were already attempting to start Trino and use it on their own. That's cool. But in order to get like the best, in order to be able to utilize all of our functionality and things like that, we create a custom connector, so we have like best in class support for that. Awesome. So there was some customer demand leading up to that, and then based on customer conversations. Yeah.
That's cool. So Roman, Matthew was saying that the application is written in Java and just like deployed, but like what does that mean? Like where is it deployed? Do people run it in their own network or as a server or on the individual workstations or both? Or like how does Coginiti as an application work?
Yeah, this is a good question. So our application has several what we call editions. So we have a Coginiti Pro, which is a desktop version of our application. We have a Coginiti Team, which is a server-based version of application. And finally, Coginiti Enterprise, which is like our high-end offering dedicated for enterprises. And the interesting thing is that we use, like, it's written all using the same technology, basically same code base, but we architected in the way that from the same code base, we could produce such different editions. So yeah, the server is written in Java. In case of Coginiti Pro, which is desktop version, you run this on your local machine, and the application itself is basically web-based application written in TypeScript. And in case of desktop, we just package it inside the Electron, which is like a platform. If you use Slack, you use Electron, right? It's come up from the GitHub originally for their Atom editor. So it's a nice way of how you could package a web application and behave it as a desktop application. So, and yeah, our premium and enterprise is what customers deploy to their own infrastructure in private clouds, etc.
Cool. So you can adjust your deployment also, like when Matthew was saying it's like in different data sources in the cloud and not, you can sort of like have it in both places to some degree even.
Yep.
And our enterprise version deploys on Kubernetes. So we'll deploy on EKS or AKS, or we'll even deploy on-prem. So that'll, it's a full scale out. So we can scale from 1 user to 10,000 users on the platform.
Yeah.
So you're also joining the Kubernetes fun. Fun.
What do you mean, Manfred? Everyone loves Kubernetes.
In fact, our server version runs like a single node Kubernetes for that.
Yeah, I strongly believe that you love every tool until you know it closely, and then you also learn to hate it because you know all the wrinkles.
Yeah.
And that definitely applies to Kubernetes for me.
Yeah.
Cool. What else do you want to share? Like, how, like as a user, what do I see, or how do you want to maybe like do a demo or so, or like how are we gonna learn more about Coginiti? It sounds all very interesting, but I want to see something.
Yeah, I could make a demo through our product and run you through the journey of a user and see what we got.
All right, cool.
Okay, so hopefully you see my screen now.
Yeah,
so
looks great.
This is a Coginiti team. This is a second edition, right? The server editions of our application. I'm running just locally, so as you can see, just local host, but basically that's the same if you deploy it on a server. So team version has a little bit more functionality than a desktop version, but that's something to keep in mind. Whatever you see in this demo, not everything would be available if you, for example, download the desktop version of the application. So in a nutshell, like when you just open the Coginiti application, it looks like a SQL IDE where you could connect to certain databases, write SQL, execute it, and so on. So here, as the first thing I want to show is what we call DB Explorer. This is the thing which you use in order to connect to your database and explore its schema and see what's available. So as Matt said, we support a lot of different platforms. So our customers could connect to many database vendor, because usually, especially big enterprises, have several databases deployed. And here I have already one connection to Trino created. If we just take a look over the connection screen, this is where you manage all the connections. So you give it a name, you specify a JDBC driver for it. And the nice thing about is JDBC driver is that when you first start, we are able to automatically download JDBC driver for you. But if you already have it, you could put it manually as well. So if you have some driver already present on your hard drive, for example, you put like a general connection things, host port, credentials, and you might specify a catalog name and the schema name, which will be used as a default when you connect to it. We also allow to specify the color of the connection, which identify like the tab color that you use when you open a tab here. This is an interesting feature because like our customers usually prefer to put like a red color for the production databases and green for some development. Yeah, to make sure that you're not executing like drop table statements when in production. So
yeah, I imagine that's super helpful also when you have multiple data sources into different systems, right? Like you're saying,
yes,
Trino versus some other.
That color was like a highly demand feature from our customers, and they were really happy when we added it. So when I expand the connection to the Trino instance, we got some information about it. So you could get just a general server information, like what versions are you running, list of catalogs, and then you could drill into every catalog and look into the schemas where you see list of tables. For every table, you might see list of columns. We could also show like a views, materialize view, etc. The list of functions, aggregate functions. For table, you could quickly preview it, where by clicking on this button, we automatically open a tab, generate automatically select statement, and do a preview of it, displaying here down in the result grid. Our result grid is also pretty powerful, so it gives you different features. For example, you could select a column and then get some immediate quick statistics about values in these columns, like what is the average value, count, distinct values, max, mean, etc.
That looks like table statistics to me.
Yeah. And other things you could do is you could switch to the full view. You could also click on this panel columns and perform some additional analysis. Like I want to do a quick pivot where I want, I don't know, let's just take another table to demonstrate these order lines, for example. And inside it, I want to quickly pivot and see, okay, I have a product and what's quantity of sales I have for each product. So it gives like a simple statistics. You could, of course, do it through the SQL using an aggregated function, but sometimes clients just like it to do inside the grid. You could also
so that's a bit like a spreadsheet work. Does that like build a query and fire it back, or does it actually use the data that's locally?
So everything you do inside grid is just do locally on the result available in the grid. It doesn't generate any SQL and execute it on Trino. No, it does just locally on the result set. Same thing, like you could just quickly build some charts. For example, again, for this data, I could build a quick chart to see. So here I have just 3 products with different quantities. Another thing you could do, you could export that results set to different formats, CSV, TSV, Excel, or just copy it to clipboard. But again, like this is an important point, like everything you do with the grid is just applied to what is available in the grid. We do not like execute it and send to the database.
So potentially that's a subset of the data, right? Like if there's like, if it's a really big data.
Yeah.
Well,
and
this is like designed almost to help bridge the gap between data scientists and people who may not have SQL skills, but still want to glean some simple insights, as they can just put it into an Excel spreadsheet and rely on that instead.
Yeah.
One thing that we see is we'll see like an analyst will build something and save it in the catalog, and then a business user can come in and actually just run that and get the results in the grid, and then they can go and treat it like Excel.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like that form of collaboration.
Yeah, Excel is that BI tool that just can't be killed.
Yeah. So some other things from the Database Explorer view is that right-clicking on the table, we could automatically generate a certain SQL for you. For example, we could generate a DDL script for a table and open it in a new tab. Right. So right-click on it, execute it, and here is a DDL for my table. I could select certain columns and say, okay, I now want to select statement to clipboard, and it will generate me a select just with the columns that I selected here, and so on. So this is just an accelerators for people who like often use and often query, and this provides a nice way of getting those queries quickly.
And I see you exposing all the catalogs there. So you can also just fire up and type a query that's a federated query across the catalogs then, right?
Yes, exactly. One additional thing is that you could also create a filter. For example, I might create a filter and select here like what I want. So, and then we'll show only what you selected in that filter. This is just a view, and you could save those filters and apply them when you want. And this filter is pretty granular, so you could do like down to any entity inside your catalog.
And that kind of setting is persisted, and like so basically different users can sort of like have different views of the overall data, so they don't look into some like financial data that they're not supposed to look.
When you go into an organization that has 10,000 databases, you probably only care about a handful of them, and so you can exclude the other 10,000 from your view.
Yeah, but those filters are personal filters. We don't like have a way of sharing those filters now, but this is an interesting idea that if someone created that filter and share it with someone.
So where do those SQL statements that I'm writing here go?
This is just ephemeral. So you open a tab and you just like in the editor, in the text editor, you open a new tab, right, and you type something. So as of now, like this is just my temporal work. They do not save anywhere, but I could save them. I could save them as a file, or I could save them inside my catalog. And we'll get to it in a moment, what's catalog means, and I'll show like all the capabilities. But before diving into that, one quick thing I want to show is we also have a search capabilities where you could search across your database object, SQL history, or catalog. So for example, if I want to search for my customers table, so I find it here, I see that, okay, this is located in my Trino personal dev connection under this catalog, and I could even quickly navigate to it. And inside DB Explorer, we will navigate to the table. So again, like for the cases when you have hundreds of databases and thousands of tables, this search becomes like a really nice way to find something quickly. And SQL history, same thing. You just type a query, and we will find it in your SQL history.
So that goes across all the catalogs and all the connections. So if you have like a database, I don't know, some in Trino and some in BigQuery or whatever, then and they all have customer tables, you'll find all of them and like.
Yeah, so in database object filter, we have this drop down where you could specify like, okay, where exactly you want to search. And also you could narrow the search to the given type of the objects. So I want to search only across aggregate functions or only across columns, etc.
Cool.
Okay. So next thing is like files. So as I said, like you could also work with the files here, and we support both like local files and files on the object store. So again, given that this is a server application which you open it with the browser, we still give you a way to work with the local files. So if you open it in a Chrome, you could actually add your local folder, and we will list the files from your local folder, and then you could work with it. You could double click on the simple file. You could double click on a CSV file, and we will immediately open it and preview it for you. And again, this is the same result where you could do all the operations that I demonstrated just earlier. You could also build a chart. You could export it. You could save it back to the table. For I have a CSV, and I could click Save to Table, and then select a connection and save it to the given database. And this both works both for local files and for object stores. So I have the connection to my S3 bucket. I open it. Let's go to sample data sets. I have a bunch of CSV file. I double click on the CSV file, and we will give a preview of it. And you could even modify the query here and filter some results, apply some transformation if you will. Under the hood for this specific use case, when we are reading CSV or Parquet file from the local object store, we use DuckDB under the hood, which is basically executed inside the browser as a WASM. And that's what gives you like a way of SQL like experience when doing this.
I have a hacky question.
Yeah.
So since I can go select star from that CSV file here, could I also go create table as select star from and create a table in my Trino catalog? So basically I'll use this feature as a like suck the CSV file into my Trino catalog?
Not now, no. Right now we don't do it, but we have this on our roadmap to do it and to provide the functionality.
Cool.
So far, like the only thing you could do here is just query it. But if you want to put it back into the Trino and some other databases, you have this save to table functionality, where you could click on it. You could select the connection to each platform you wanna save it, and then the result grid, whatever you have in the result grid, will be saved into your database.
So you could do. Okay, so it's a different way of doing it, but yeah.
Transformations, yeah. But that's the way to do it as of now. Okay. So before diving into the catalog, because this is like a very important part of our application, I just want to quickly say about AI Assistant, that we also have an integrated AI assistant. We do support several assistants like OpenAI and Anthropic, and in the next release more coming. But nice thing about it is that when you configure a certain assistant, you have this checkbox like share database metadata with AI assistant. By default, it's off. But if you turn it on, what we will do is whenever you talk to your AI assistant, we will feed some metadata into it regarding your current database. So you give it a context. Now, like right now, it doesn't work for Trino. It will work in next release, which is coming like next week. So I'll do the demonstration just for Postgre. But here is example. So I ask AI assistant, like, segment customers into 4 groups based on the total orders amount. So as you can see, I didn't mention anything about like what tables do I have, like what's the name of the tables, etc. The only thing I have is that my current connection is pointed to this Postgre or any shop database. And AI Assistant was able to provide me a query, which I could copy, I could run it, and it actually gives me some results. So what it did, I mean, it did really simple things, but it still like demonstrates the power of this tool. Is it put like an entile for, because I asked for 4 groups, my customers based on the total order value. So this is really nice way of like giving some context and improving your workflow, asking AI assistant about your data. Okay, so now catalog. So as Matt mentioned, like catalog is like a central place or repository where you keep all your SQL assets. And this is where we want users to collaborate as well. So being as a repository, it also provides you with things like automatic version control and permission system. So whatever I put inside my catalog will be automatically version control. So you don't need a separate like GitHub to manage. You don't need any other things. In terms of permissions, you could share your folders with others. So for example, I could right click on the folders, click share, and then share it either with individual users or with the groups. And when I share, I could specify like the role. Do I want it to be just a viewer, which means it's read-only access, or editor, or co-owner. I could also like view history on certain assets. So in this case, I have 3 versions. I could also do some comparison a bit between them, what's changed, and so on. So all things that you would expect from the repository which wants to keep track of the assets.
So question about those assets. Like, I mean, I'm just seeing like there's a bunch of SQL snippets here, but how, like, is there some metadata associated with each SQL query to know in what context it needs to run? Like one might be a Trino SQL statement, and another one might be a Postgres one, and another one might be a BigQuery one. So how do users know from those queries where they're supposed to run, or how they run, or is it somehow associated? Can they see that? Or
yeah, so speaking of the assets itself, like we do not associate any connection information with an asset. So meaning that when you open an asset, right, you actually like then you select manually on where you want to execute it. You could add some additional like metadata, give it a name, give it description, or put some additional metadata to the CoginitiScript blocks, which we talk in a bit, but nothing besides that. We do not associate any connection information, and this is by design, because in a lot of cases, like same assets could be used across different databases, and we don't want to like limit users in terms of like where they want to run it. Of course, they could manually organize it in any way, because this is like a folder structure hierarchy. So we see certain users organize it hierarchical and put some platform names as a folders to group them together, etc. So
that probably makes sense, right? Like
to the user. Yeah,
that's cool.
So one thing like you could see here is all this varied syntax besides SQL query. Those are what we call a CoginitiScript. And I want to just quickly talk about what is it. So Matt mentioned that catalog and this concept of collaboration and reusability is something that we want to like solve, because the capabilities of how like the problem with sharing SQL is a real problem. that example that Matt mentioned with Excel file being as a mechanism to share, this is a real example, and we see it. So when solving that problem, we think like, okay, we don't want to get rid of SQL because SQL is a universal language. It's basically lingua franca. You need to speak it, and we don't want to get rid of it. But is there any way how we could improve SQL just a little bit so we could add a reusability of it? If you could add ability to package it into the libraries and then distribute those libraries and basically make it possible for people or departments in the big organization share with those assets. And we created a CoginitiScript. This is a domain-specific language built on top of SQL. Whatever you write here inside our application is basically the CoginitiScript. Even if now I type just a SQL, under the hood, it's CoginitiScript. So imagine the scenario where I have this query and I want to add some additional filter like on the domain. So I want to just get all the customers which has a Gmail domain in it. Execute it. I'll get my customers. And now I want to share this SQL with someone for reuse. I could, of course, save it as is in my catalog and then say some other coworker, look, if you want that query, you could take a look over it. But that's doesn't solve the problem, because what if he wants to build something on top of that query, right? He either need to copy paste that query into his query or turn it into the, I don't know, stored procedures, etc. With CoginitiScript, you could do something different. So you could define a block, give it a name, and between begin and end, put your query. And now I could query that block just as I would query table overview. I run it, I get same result. So, but this is a bit limited. Like I hard-coded my value here. What if I want to let my colleague to customize it and pass a different domain into it? So I could do it as an argument. I could add an argument, and instead of hard-coded value here, I could just use my argument. I run it, and I get my Yahoo customers. We could go even further and let users specify a list of domains. So now I have a list, and I use a loop to traverse. So there's that list. And I run it. And now I get both Gmail and Yahoo customers. Now, if you look at this output tab, this is a log of execution. So you could see we executed this statement. But for every CoginitiScript statement, you have this show generated button where you could see like what was the final SQL queries that we actually executed against Trino in this case. So you see that reference to the block was basically substituted with the common table expression where we put content of the block inside it. And that loop that I have over my domain was translated into this statement. So at compile time, we basically executed that loop and put it into the final SQL. So now I got a nice small block, which is reusable, which I could save now in my catalog and then ask my colleague, whenever you want to use the result of that query, you just query my block and pass arguments, if you will. So, and this is like a big concept which we built on top of it and allows you users for reuse.
That's very cool. So you can, so it's a bit of a templating language basically that generates it under the hood. But can you use those then again? Like can I call them in a different script? Like can someone else call this customer in their script once you share it or something?
In different scripts, like in SQL or in some other scripts outside of
well, inside Coginiti, but as a different user, like you define it and then call runs it. Like call just
Yeah.
writes the second
So-
part, and he knows that the first part
Yeah.
exists somewhere
So
else.
what I could do, so what I could do is I could save this script inside the catalog. So let's create a new folder. I say it, I don't know, customers. Right? Oh, not. Let's say, I don't know, some report. Okay. And now I save this catalog inside my Trino report. And now I could share this folder with some other guy on my team.
Mhm.
And then some other guy in my team, in order to use it, could import that,
Okay.
that package. So Trino community call, I have this wrapper, right, like that. And then, sorry, this is slash. And then I could call it like that. So everything you have in the folder is basically the part of the package, which is determined by the name of the folder. So in my case, report is a package. And in order to use blocks from that package, you need to import package first. So in my case, I import in Trino community /report, which is this package where I just save my block. And now I could call any blocks from that package using package name dot block name notations. And we do support even things like public or private blocks. So whatever is from with capital letter is a public block. If it's from lowercase letter, it's a private block, meaning you can't access it outside of your package. So this is like advanced techniques for encapsulation of certain logic inside blocks if you do not want to expose it outside of the package.
That's
Now,
cool. And then like that also affects, I guess, the search that you had before, like where you were searching across, the discoverability of those things goes into that search, right?
I mean, searches works across all this. It doesn't mean it's private or public, but in future, yeah, we want to limit also to do not expose the private blocks for you.
But you can find out like they exist basically, so that's great.
Yeah. So one additional things we have is that you could also have an anonymous blocks, basically like that. I don't have any names in it. And basically, this is what happens by default if you just type a query like this. Under the hood, it's just an anonymous block, which you don't see, right? But every block could also have a metadata in it. So you could assign some additional information to the metadata. You could add some documentation to it saying that, okay, this query returns list of Gmail and Yahoo customers. Okay, and you could also add some other things like publication, where you could basically, this is a way to export the result of the block into some external system, whenever it's a file system, your local file system, or blob store, or it's a database, and any database we support. So I could export it into the for example, CSV. I could give it a path, let's say connection. I want to export it into the S3 and give it a path. Nestertsov sandbox Yahoo customers. CSV, right? And you can do some options. And once you have it, if you execute that publication, we will get the result and publish it into whatever config it has been put by the user in the publication. So you can see this amount of rows has been published. And if I open now my blob store, go into this, let's see, I have this Yahoo customers CSV file.
And so I imagine with that scheduling tab at the top that we haven't talked about yet, that auto scheduling and publishing files seems like a pretty handy combination and synergy that could be super useful.
Exactly. So whenever you have a query which you want the result of which you want to publish somewhere, you could just wrap it into the block, set a publication config, and then schedule that asset inside the catalog, right? You could click on schedule and put it to run like on a daily basis at a given time.
And that could be a CSV, a Parquet file, it could be a table, it could be a view. And we have a scheduler. The thing that we just released last month is we also have an execution API. So if you have an orchestration tool, you can call the API and have any of these triggered downstream as well.
Yeah. And last thing is about publications, that this concept, a publication, could be used to create pipelines that you would create with the tools like DBT, for example. So in DBT, you define your models as the files, right? And then run them, and you reference other models through the ref macro. With CoginitiScript, you could do the same, where you define your models as the blocks, and then reference those blocks through as a just block invocation. And then for things you want to put as a model, you define it as a publication. So in this example, for example, I have my sources defined, like I have a bunch of sources. And then I have two tables that I want to produce for the reporting capabilities. One called orders, another called customers. For orders, I want to publish it as a table with name orders. And then I have a simple query which does some transformations and outputs the result. And as you can see, I reference my source through the by importing source package, and then references those blocks. And for customers, I do the same and perform some RFM analysis and publish it as a table. And then finally, I have my schedule nightly script, where I just publish everything I have in my marked package. And then I could put it on a schedule to be executed on a daily basis. And what would happen is that we will execute all the publication within marked package. We will determine all the dependency between assets and execute them in a correct order. So this allows our customers to basically build a transformation pipeline in a similar way if they would build it with DBT. One additional
and you don't need to learn Python.
and you don't need to learn Python.
Right.
And another thing is that it's highly interactive. So for example, I have this block. If I want to quickly debug it, I just select this query. Just select this query, hit F5. I will execute it and see the result immediately here. And if something goes wrong, like I could debug it quickly here. There is no like compile, run things, like everything happens interactively inside this tool. In addition to that, you could also write tests. So test is just a query which should return some data if test fails. So in this case, I just have a quick test to show that my order ID should be unique. I shouldn't have any nulls in these columns. And I could execute this test here locally again by pressing F5, and I run the test. Or within my scheduler, I could run those tests programmatically by saying test.run, execute all the tests in my source, and then execute all my tests in the marked. And then during the scheduling operation, when we run it, we will report back through the notification panel whenever scheduled items executed successfully or it is failed. For example, in this run, it fails. I got some test fails. I could click on the open execution log file. We will navigate to that file and we will output you the log that was executed in that time. So I see that this test failed. I could double click on the test. It will navigate me to the test. Now I can run it here and see what's happened actually. So this is like a really nice way of making sure that your data is valid and then troubleshooting this data if something went wrong.
It's cool. It's like a full-on IDE for it, basically.
Yes.
Full development environment in a way.
Yes. You don't need any other tool basically to build any transformation pipeline with data quality tests. Just our application, and nice thing about it is, again, it's highly interactive. There is no like compile run step. You just like hit run and we do the rest. And we also try to do a good job on the error reporting. So if you reference some blocks and you have some errors, we would try to give you a really nice error message with the navigation to where exactly error happens. And this also improves the user experience and troubleshooting.
So Matthew, like, how many people are using this? Like at like on average at a customer? Like, is there like 10, 100, or like what's the range? Like, or is it just 1 or 2?
Yeah, our largest customer is 4,000 users right now on a single site. So
that's pretty busy, I think.
We have an ongoing sales pursuit where it's actually the number. We thought it was around 4,000, and then it turned out that we missed a 0. So they said they have 40,000 users. We're like, can we scale up to that incrementally? So yeah, so we have a lot of single user shops, a long tail of kind of like 10 to 20 users, and then we have some large, quite a number of large enterprise customers.
That's
cool. Probably around 100 users.
So it really scales to that sort of level, and the folder structure and the sharing and everything seems to work okay. So that's right. Really good to know.
Yeah. The idea is the catalog become like a single source of trust where everything is managed and you control the permission in order to like who can access it, right? The department and several teams. And then like do all your logic and transformation pipeline inside Coginiti with ability to orchestrate them externally. We have an API integration, so you could call and orchestrate it from Duckster or from Airflow and from other tools, as well as then consume data from your BI tool.
Right. So that's the other thing is like either from like Power BI or from a notebook tool, you can actually call our API and return data into those. So we'll return data as a JSON or as a CSV, or we have AeroStream coming out next month. Yep. In terms of return data.
Very cool. So with all these queries, you're probably keeping your Trino clusters pretty busy.
Keep them hot.
Sweating.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Roman. That was an amazing demo. There's a lot of features in there to discover for users. I can tell it's crazy. And it's interesting approach to have a custom DLL wrapped around SQL. It's really cool.
Yep.
That's the 56% of the Coginiti platform. So there's a few other things in there, but I think that's enough for people to get excited about.
Yeah.
We have a lot of features. Yeah, whatever I have showed, it's not all of them, but this is like a biggest.
Our editor has multi-cursor support and folding, and all the things that you'd expect in a nice IDE as well.
Autocomplete and all this stuff that you would usually expect from the IDE tool.
So people can go to the Coginiti website that they can find where?
Oh, it's coginiti.co. Coginiti.co. You can download the personal version and run it on your laptop.
And test it out. That's really cool. And of course, you can test it with Trino. Of course, you should be testing it with Trino, nothing else, right? Like,
that's right. Connect to your Trino platform today.
Awesome, cool. And of course, you're both also on the Trino Slack. So if people have any questions, they can find you there as well, right?
Let us know.
Awesome, cool. Cool. Anything else we want to chat about in terms of Coginiti and this crazy tool? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I always like seeing new editors. It's something in the Trino community where we have a few that support Trino in a big way. But like this was kind of a unique and interesting take that I think makes collaboration and automation even just smooth and simple, and doesn't require being a SQL mastermind, but has tons of features for the people that are the SQL masterminds to enable their teammates. So that was a really awesome talk and an awesome demo, and I'm a fan. So
we appreciate you guys having us on. It was worth it just for Cole's facial expressions throughout the demo.
Yeah, every once in a while you like show them all, like, oh, that's cool.
He's like, there's this other cool button. What does that do? Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for joining us. Let's jump over for a second to rounding out our episode. As we just mentioned earlier, you can find Coginiti and Roman and Matthew on Trino Slack. And of course, you can also find lots of other things there. Specifically, you can probably soon find the links to the 3 episodes we recorded of the Trino SQL training that me, Martin, Dane, and David are building up. And the next episode is in 2 weeks. So make sure you register for that. And then, of course, the big bang will be Trino Summit after in less than a month, as we are already shaking in our boots getting that ready. And Cole is going to get the announcement and everything live together with Anna and Monica and Mandy. So should be really cool. We hope to see Matthew and Roman there in the audience as well for Trino Summit. And don't forget to send us your SQL routines for the competition.
I think that was everything, Manfred. I think you hit everything on the head.
I hit everything on the head. And with that, try Coginiti to understand your data. And don't forget, you need to connect it to Trino.
And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you at the training, at the summit, and in next Trino Community Broadcast episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Music for the show is from the Mega Man 6 gameplay album by Krzysztof Sławikowski. Don't forget to give us a star on the Trino repository at github.com/TrinoDB/Trino. And for more information on future shows and to find show notes, check out trino.io/broadcast.